Welcome to the Boxing Source Podcast, where we go over the latest news in boxing and react to all of the fights that happened in the past week. Now, let's go to our host, J.R. Bell.
Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We should be here live for December 14th, 2025, here for the Boston Source Podcast. That's right, we are here checking in. Big ups for everyone that's able to tune in live, whether it's through YouTube or Rumble, or if you're listening to the replay. We're going to be uploading this podcast on Spotify. It will be available on various platforms through, iHeart, Amazon Podcasts, you name it, it'll be available. So you'll be able to listen in on that. You know what I mean? So you'll be able to enjoy this on demand or whatever it is that you use to listen to podcasts. But we got a few things here that we're going to cover in this edition of the Boston Source Podcast. We're going to be going over the results of what happened last weekend. Yes, you did have something over in California on Saturday and on Friday as well, right? But we also did have something going on overseas too. I wanted to tackle that because there was a version of a heavyweight title, okay, that was on the line and was, who defended, but it had a candidate for knockout of the year potentially on that particular fight card over in Dubai, right? And that still, doesn't even include another world title fight. So there was a good amount of action that did take place, yesterday and on Friday. So we're going to be, talking about that because we got, a few world title fights that took place or whatever it is, and some titles that did change hands. So we're going to be talking about that in this edition of the Boston Source Podcast here. So, all right. So wanted to get into a few things here. We wanted to kind of like review a couple of results here. You did have something there that was like on pay-per-view. I kind of like mentioned this on the midweek report. You did have a few fights that were on Friday night. I'm going to see here if I'm able to share this on the screen here. So let me see here if I'm able to pull this up, because we're going to be going over the fights that did happen on Friday night. So yeah, this should be it. Yep. All right, cool. So here it is. Yeah. So you did have something there over in California on Friday night that was like on a pay-per-view. You did have in the super featherweight division Justin Valoria versus Alexander Espinoza, with Valoria getting a knockout victory there in the fourth round to go 11-0. You did also have Jaleel Major Hackett there with a first round knockout victory over Jose Angulo in the super welterweight division. Of course, we're getting back in the ring out there for the second time after his loss that he had last year by decision. Some people felt like, maybe he won, maybe he lost, but, and then he was supposed to have a rematch in March, got injured, was able to get back into it in September with a stoppage victory, and now has another stoppage victory here, and he is now 11-1, floating around there at the super welterweight division. You did have Vlad Panin there against Rogelio Rodriguez there, and it was like easy work. You can see what I mean there. And then Chantel Navarro went up against Naomi Reyes and got a unanimous decision victory on that front. All right. So we also did have, like I said, on Saturday, a number of things there that did take place, but we also had on Friday over in Dubai. Oh man, we had this, man. I wanted to share this joint here. So just give me a few moments here. I'm going to share this on the screen because I wanted to talk about this as well, because that was like a candidate there for knockout of the year. Let me see if this is the right joint. Hold on a second. Let me switch to this one. Yeah, there it is. All right. So you see there, right? Kubrat Pulev against Murat Gasayev. This was like IBA boxing. That I kind of like mentioned this on the midweek report that they were going to have this on YouTube, and then late they decided to put this on the zone. I'm like, oh, hey, y'all feel like it's going to be on the zone, then it is what it is. But Murat Gasayev was able to land a left hook and send Kubrat Pulev to the canvas, and Pulev couldn't beat the count, and he got knocked up out. All right, and now Murat Gasayev is actually now the WBA regular champion, as I say. Of course, Alexander Usyk is the super champion, so you're gonna have Murat Gasayev as the WBA World Heavyweight Champion with this knockout win over Kubrat Pulev. And yeah, that's right. Yeah, Kubrat Pulev did have the WBA title there, but he lost to Murat Gasayev, got knocked clean out. Well, I wouldn't say clean out, but he just couldn't get up there from that left hook, bro. So you did have that happen, and also you had what was this over in Los Angeles? You did also have the WBC Cruiserweight title on the line. Badu Jack defending the title against Nuri McKellen, and this was a rematch. Some people feel like McKellen won the first match, but he ends up winning this one here by unanimous decision over Badu Jack to become the WBC Cruiserweight champion. And then you also did have Diego Pacheco going up against Kevin Lelesajo there for the WBO International Super Middleweight title. And Diego Pacheco wins by unanimous decision, getting up from a knockdown in round 8. You also had Joe Cordina defeat Gabe Flores Jr. There for a international lightweight title. I'm going to talk about that there as well. Yeah, Sky Nicholson with a decision win over Luna Avila. I'm not going to pronounce that first name. That ain't happening. And you had Ernesto Mercado get a knockout win over Antonio Moran. So that was mostly action that did happen there this weekend, right? So we're gonna kind of talk about this thing here as far as like what happened first with the fights that took place in Stockton Arena. Their matchroom card that was on the zone: Diego Pacheco, Kevin Sajo, undefeated versus undefeated. You did have Diego Pacheco, that was one of those leading contenders out there floating around in the 168-pound rankings, right? And some people thought that maybe he could make a move towards getting closer to a world title shot. But we also know what happened earlier this year with Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, and it looks like Terrence Crawford and Canelo may end up having a rematch in September of next year. That's what it's looking like, because you're not going to have Canelo fighting in May. And I doubt that, Terrence Crawford is going to be fighting before his bout against Canelo Alvarez. He's only had like one fight a year for like the past 5 or 6 years, right? So trying to see what's going on here with these other fighters in the super middleweight division, okay? You did have Diego Pacheco coming off of his win against Trevor McCumbee in July this year. But, some people were kind of like saying, okay, you got Pacheco now not necessarily with Jose Benavidez Sr. So we wanted to see like how it would perform here against Kevin Sajo, who had a high knockout ratio in those 26 wins. I think it was 24 or it's 23 knockouts from the 26 wins that he had, right? So we had to see like how Pacheco was going to maneuver around Kevin Sajo. And I'm going to tell y'all this, man. I'm going to be real with y'all. This looked like a struggle for Diego Pacheco, man. It looked like a struggle for Diego Pacheco, and it looked like there wasn't that much action in this that much at all, man. And I'm gonna admit to y'all, man. I was fading. I was fading, man. I was fading, y'all. I was fading watching that fight. Like outside of what happened in the 8th round, with the knockdown, and that wasn't, necessarily a clean knockdown to me. I mean, that was more of like, timing it right, and then, Pacheco slipping. But man, that was a struggle to go through those 12 rounds there in that main event. Okay. Um, that was completely different than what we saw with the Badu Jack and McKellen fight. But this right here, oh man, this was something. I mean, I thought, I would have saw more, at least from Diego Pacheco, given that he had a significant height advantage. He's there listed around what, 6'3", 6'4". Yeah, 6'4". And Kevin Sajo is there around like 5'8". Okay, 5'8" at 35 years old, with a guy there that's 6'4", that has reached the 79 and is 24 years old. But he wasn't able to, I guess, combine enough elements there, have enough within his skill set to really give Kevin Sajo trouble. Like Sajo was able to get within your range at various times, not being very effective doing that, but still throwing power shots. But I'm like, still though, like, to get through 12 rounds. Yeah, he got a unanimous decision there, a score of like 117, 110, 116, 111, and 115, 112. So, 8 rounds at minimum, winning 8 rounds at minimum there for Diego Pacheco. But, you would kind of think that with the number of the fights that he's had against the Trevor McCumbee, against the Masi Selecki, against the Steven Nelson, that would be a completely different skill level there compared to what Sajo has been doing, right? And you thought you would kind of like see that clearly, but there were times where you kind of seen there Diego Pacheco not really put a lot of those punches together, right? And so, with that being said, I kind of like would say, yeah, you do have Pacheco getting this win. You do have him staying undefeated. He is now 25-0. Okay. He's there, as I said, he's rated at number 3 currently in the WBO. Okay. And they were talking about this. I think we seen it, through Ring Magazine or whatever it is, that they're, trying to move towards having Diego Pacheco fighting Hamza Shiraz. Now, I think Shiraz was in attendance for the ring, what is that, Ring 5 there in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And you said that, they were working on him getting in another fight. Now, this one here could be like a final eliminator for the WBO if you're going to have Crawford and Canelo fight each other again, with Crawford still having a WBO belt. But given what Hamza Shiraz did, man, I know he sent Edgar Berlanga straight to hell or whatever. And look at what Diego Pacheco has been doing here, right? I mean, I have to see what's going to be happening if they do have that fight take place. Shout out to those in the live chat right now. We got Jake Pylon checking in. He says Jake Paul is going to beat the brakes off AJ. It's a wrap. Oh man, he I guess Jake Pylon has all his chips on Jake Paul winning on Friday night. I'm gonna be talking about that particular fight as we're pretty much into fight week right now. Yes, it's going to be on Friday on Netflix there. So you got Netflix, you'll be able to watch this particular fight coming up between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, right? But we gonna see, man. I'm gonna try to talk about it here a little bit in the midweek report on Wednesday. I'm gonna go more in depth on it because like I said, I mean, there is a lot on the line from multiple facets. Okay, but we'll see what happens on that front. Now, the thing there with like I said, in the super middleweight division, you got Diego Pacheco out there, that's undefeated. You got Hamza Shiraz that, he did have, what went down there in the middleweight division before he, moved up, where he got the draw against Carlos Adames. A lot of people thought that Carlos Adames won that. but then he turned around and he got that knockout win over Edgar Berlanga. Like I said, he pretty much sent Berlanga straight to hell, though. And now, they're saying like, okay, we might have a lot of interest behind Hamza Shiraz and what he's doing there in the ring. Of course, he got Andy Lee there, former world champion, whatnot, in his corner. And you're trying to see, okay, maybe he could do something where he could contend for a world title in the super middleweight division. Now, if you're going to have potentially Hamza Shiraz versus Diego Pacheco, who would y'all basically pick on that? Like I said, as of right now, I'm leaning towards Hamza Shiraz. It would be a great matchup. You got, two guys there that are around the same height. Like I said, about 6'3", or up. So they pretty much like my height or taller. They're competing at the super middleweight division. And I said there's a lot of contenders out there in the super middleweight division. We saw what happened it wasn't even like the co-feature bout, but you saw what happened there with Christian and Billy and Lester Martinez. And that fight ended up as a draw. I felt like Lester Martinez won that. A lot of people thought, we would get a rematch, but we ain't getting an immediate rematch on that. So you got Christian and Billy that's going to defend his interim WBC super middleweight title. Yeah, speaking of the WBC and all them belts, right? And you're gonna have, Lester Martinez there, going out to have another bout. I think Billy is gonna be fighting Jaime McGee, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta check on that because that would be a really interesting bout if that's the case. But you got that is going on with the WBC. You got, Osseous Iglesias there as a contender in the IBF. And if you have Shiraz against Pacheco, then that could kind of like sort out what's happening around the top of the sanctioning bodies rankings. So you don't have to worry about sorting anything out. As far as like Jamal Charlo, he might be in the ring against Jose Resendiz, who defeated Caleb Plant for the WBA interim super middleweight championship. So you got all of these belts that have to be sorted out. You know what I mean? You say, yeah, Pacheco on the floor in the 8th round was something. Yeah, I mean, the thing was, hey, you did have Kevin Sajo there, with the with that high knockout ratio going into the fight. So, he did have to be aware of a few things as far as like Pacheco is concerned, right? But Pacheco was still, able to keep his composure and rack up them rounds. So you seen him rack up them rounds. Like I said, at least like 8 rounds won on the judges' scorecards or whatever it was. So you know what I mean. So that's the thing on that, right? Now, as far as like I said, if they do make up that match between Diego Pacheco and Hamza Shiraz, I think it would be a really intriguing matchup to see where both of those fighters are at within the super middleweight division. I think it would be not much different than what we saw in September with Christian and Billy and Lester Martinez. He says, "Oh, they ducking Zackenhuber." Hold on, let me see. Simon Zackenhuber. Yeah, he is, what is it, number 6, I think, in the WBO and number 8 in the IBF. Man, so he got Simon Zackenhuber. Hey, that's a good day to pull right there. 28-0 from Germany. You know what I mean? But yeah, hey, props to Jay Powell on there with that name on there, man. But hey, he had a, what was it? Simon Zackenhuber had a match in July over in Germany. What is he had like all those fights in Germany or somewhere, whatever it is. I don't know. He's probably gonna be like the Ben Aki of this modern generation or something, having all these fights in Germany, winning all them fights, and not necessarily getting a high profile fight there in the super middleweight division. That could end up happening. You know what I mean? So let's see that. But yeah, Diego Pacheco, Hamza Shiraz, be on the lookout for that to be, I don't know. You got, what was it? You got Ring 6 coming up in December. You got the next ring event in January 31st with Tio versus Shakur headlining that. So maybe you get something in February or March where we could have Diego Pacheco versus Hamza Shiraz involved in a fight card there that might be, over in Saudi Arabia or something like that. We could see that. He says uh, Terrence Crawford could beat Diego Pacheco and Jaime Munguia at the same time. He is going to knock out Canelo this time around. Hey, I'll say this about Terrence Crawford, right? Being there at the fight. After those first few rounds, he was like, okay, this is what Canelo was doing. All right, bet. I think he felt like he could take a little bit more, shots and be a little bit more aggressive, in the pocket and things like that against Canelo within those middle rounds or something like that. And those last few rounds, felt like he had to win a couple of those in order to seal it. And once he did that, I was like, all right, cool. I mean, they still almost tried to get him. They still almost tried to get him, but it still was a unanimous decision for Crawford, right? But hey, we gonna see what happens come I would say September again. We might have it back at Allegiant Stadium again for that. But like I was saying there, with Diego Pacheco getting that win, he's still one of those higher rated fighters within a super middleweight division. You did have it in the co-feature, Gabriel Flores Jr. versus Joe Cordina there, and you had like a version of a WBO lightweight title on the line, right? You did have there, of course, Joe Cordina having his lone loss to Anthony Casase last year, where he got beat up and got knocked out, right? But he was able to bounce back with a win earlier this year, and now going up against Gabe Flores, who was kind of floating around there in the rankings in the WBO for 135. And some people thought that he could have potentially fought for at the time, the vacant WBO lightweight title. But they had the thing with Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes going in there over in Riyadh for November 22nd for that vacant WBO lightweight title. And that was, one of the better fights of the year, with Abdullah Mason getting this win. Now with Gabriel Flores, the thing with Gabe was he had been, kind of like floating around there within top rank. He had fights on the top rank and that type of stuff, but didn't necessarily get much traction. So you kind of like seeing Gabriel Flores have a few fights that were, I don't know, like off TV or whatever it is. And he had just basically got from like being involved in, a few 8-rounders and then a couple of 10-rounders outside of the fight that he had against Giovanni Cabrera, back in 2022, right? But hey, having losses to a Giovanni Cabrera and to a Luis Alberto Lopez, they're at 130 pounds. But he was able to have a string of wins here at the lightweight division after the Cabrera fight to kind of like get him up the rankings. But now going up against Joe Cordina, and he was there in his hometown, but he just couldn't keep up with Joe Cordina. Couldn't keep up with him. And the only thing was that Joe Cordina just made it. He was able to do enough to win. There were a couple of times where it seemed like he had Gabriel Flores in some real trouble late in that fight, where he could have scored a knockdown or would have been close to a stoppage or whatnot. But Joe Cordina getting this win, he's able to get that WBO International lightweight title, climb up the rankings there within the WBO, right? At the time, Cordina was ranked number 6. Gabe Flores was ranked number 4. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that this kind of like would put him, at number 1 or number 2, but giving a fight or two, Joe Cordina could be a potential world title contender in 2026. So what was my guy Jay Palin saying that Roy Jones Jr., greatest super middleweight of all times. He said, yeah, Crawford is not even ranked in the WBC at 168. Yeah, I mean, he gave up the belt He said, "Hey, I ain't paying all them fees. 300,000 plus another one." And I know a lot of people have kind of caught what Eddie Hearn was saying about that particular topic when I talked with them on that. Like that's been one of the I guess trending videos I would say within YouTube channel or whatever it is. But like I was saying there with this WBO International lightweight title fight between Gabe Flores and Joe Cordina. Joe Cordina getting his win could put him in position to either fight for the world title later down the line or have a fight in the interim. Because I think with Abdullah Mason winning the WBO lightweight title, he's going to have a defense, I would say, in his hometown of Cleveland, probably against Renee Tejas or against like a Josh Pagan. Some people bringing up Albert Bell. Nah. Mm-mm. So if y'all look at, the rankings, you had like Renee Tejas at number 11, Josh Pagan at number 12, and Chris Mwafo at number 13. I'll see if I'll share that real quick for those watch it live. Once again, shout out to everyone that is listening live here. But you can see there on the screen, if I could just scroll down. Well, I ain't even going to do that. This is what I'm going to do. All right, y'all should be able to hear me, right? All right, bet. So you do have it there with the rankings there. Don't worry about the whole thing with number one. That's going to change here once they update the WBO rankings, right? Because last updated there was before Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes fought. But you do have Renee Tejas at number 11, Josh Pagan at number 12, Christopher Mwafo at number 13. Be on the lookout for one of those three fighters potentially fighting Abdullah Mason if he has his first world title defense in his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. Question is, do they have to pay just to get ranked 2? Yeah. Yes, they do. Speaking of that, you do have the WBA convention that is going to be taking place in Orlando, right? So you do have the whole thing with the WBA, like how they have those meetings and all that type of stuff. You had the conventions that happen, all through the week or whatnot. Actually, I think that thing did kind of like take place. Yeah. So yeah, that was the thing with the WBA. Actually, it just concluded. So the 104th WBA convention like just ended today. Oh, well, no, not ended today. It's through the 16th. Yeah. So the 12th through the 16th is when they had the WBA convention. So you still have, what's going on with the WBA. They're going to be updating their rankings. You know what I mean? And all that type of stuff, right? So yeah, all of that goes on in these conventions or every month. The WBA, the WBC, WBO, IBF, they get those phone calls, they get some emails. They say, hey, you know what? I want to get my fighter in this position to either fight in an eliminator or fight for a world title or fight for an interim title or fight for the gold title. Like I was saying with all those belts, that's what happens. All right. So all that type of stuff goes on in order to move a lot of these fighters around to either have fights to put them in position or you'll get them in a particular ranking. You know what I mean? Shout out to New Era TV in the building. It says, Luke, we got to get Albert Bell a title fight. This doesn't make sense. And this is why, this is a prime example. You got Albert Bell here. Y'all see him in the rankings here at 135. But a lot of people, of course, have been following boxing, know about Albert Bell when he was contending in the 130-pound division. And he had been a top contender at 130 for a long time, but didn't get that opportunity to fight for a world title. And one of the things that kind of like stood out was for the Albert Bell when he was at 130 and trying to fight for an interim title, and he didn't necessarily get that. You know what I mean? So you do have what's going on within these sanctioning bodies and all that type of stuff. Secret Dance Move says sanctioning belts are great for boxing. There. Well, I mean, sanctioning belts are great for boxing, but are we going to have a interim title, a regular title, international title, a WBC USA belt? Are we having all of these titles? They get percentages off of. So is it great for boxing if you're going to have like 5 or 6 different belts within one sanctioning body? We don't know. Joining me right now in this conversation, live conversation, is my guy, the topic in the building, checking in. What's going on, topic?
What's up, Brody? How you?
All good, man. All good. We just chopping it up as far as like boxing talk. We had a few fights that was going on this weekend. You did have a thing there with Diego Pacheco going up against Kevin Saggio at 168. He could be fighting Hamza Shiraz next year. They could be setting that up there, and that could be like an eliminator for the WBO belt. So like what's your thoughts about Diego Pacheco and him at 168 and what he could potentially do against someone like Hamza Shiraz?
Um, First, can you see me?
Yeah,
Okay. Let me see. Let me turn my camera. I don't know if this is better. Is this better or no? It don't matter.
I don't think it matters.
Okay. Well, to your question, I think to me, I still think Diego is a young man. He's fighting some tough guys. You know what I'm saying? He's fought Trevor McCumbee. He's fought what's Bud Crawford man name? Uh, uh, Steven Nelson.
Yeah.
He's fought some guys, so he will fight. You know what I mean? And he did have a little hiccup yesterday, which that come with the game. But I still think he's just young. I don't know if I don't see the devastating punching power that I would like to see out of him. I still think he got room to like grow and fill out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It showed his performance last night showed that he still got dog in him. You know what I mean? Like when he got dropped, he still, had it in his mind to keep fighting. That didn't like stun him where he just scrapped this whole game plan. But a fight between I wouldn't like him and Hamza right now.
Mm.
That might be like a stock building fight. We're gonna throw that out there, mention it, see what the people say, see how they react to it. That put Diego in that conversation where that raises his stock and they just mentioning him. But realistically, the way Hamza went out there and he handled business, Hamza's a little bit older. You know what I mean? He's a little more turning that next chapter where he wants to get those big fights. And Pacheco's like 24 or something like that.
Yep.
So he's still a young man. You know what I mean? He's fighting guys though, but I still would like to see him work on some things before he fights because he don't gotta really rush. All these other guys is like he's in that right position.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He's positioned right, but these other guys are a little bit older where he can just wait a year or two and say when he get 26, because he's getting around, he's fighting these tough guys, he's getting experience. I just want to see him get stronger for me personally. I want to see him like get some more stoppages. You know what I'm saying? Start like hurting guys a little bit more. But and then he trains trainers too.
Yeah.
So that could be a big factor. Like no matter who the trainer is, if somebody been training you for years, a couple months, especially when you in the fire. You know what I'm saying? It's different to hear it in the gym where it's the music and it's a controlled environment. But when you in that fire, you know what I'm saying? That's like doing a virtual fireman course, and you getting gold and getting a certificate on that.
Yeah.
And then they say, "All right, we got a real fire for you. We're gonna send you in there. You gonna get in there and see the fire, start feeling that heat. You gonna be forgetting everything. Like, oh, it's way different." So him changing trainers could have been a big factor. He might have been fighting off of instincts after a little while of that last fight, but I still like him as a prospect. He's still young, so a lot of those other guys a little bit more, a little
Yeah.
further as far
I
as
mean,
development for me.
I mean, the thing with Shiraz, he's been in the ring there, like I said, against Carlos Adames for the WBC middleweight title. He did have that win over Ammo Williams there, So we got to see, how that kind of like turns out if they kind of set this up again, because for someone like a Diego Pacheco, he has those wins over the Trevor McCumbeys and the Steven Nelsons. That's kind of put him in that position to be ranked where he is within the WBO. So it's like, okay, do you give him more fights before he could be ready against like a Shiraz or like a Lester Martinez or a Christian and Billy, or do you just have him continue to have those fights to kind of like get him more to be more familiar with the trainer that he has right now?
I mean, those guys you just named are like he said he'll fight. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
Pacheco has been adamant in saying that he ain't ducking no rep. You know what I'm saying? So whatever Eddie Hearn, and you know how Eddie Hearn moves his guys, he takes care of his guys, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He's not gonna put him too deep in over his head. And like what I seen with Billy and Lester, one, they got unfinished business. You know what I mean? I think I would love to see that rematch. But those guys, if I was his promoter, we don't want those guys unless it's a world title on the line. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be a world title because if not, we don't need that yet. It got to be worthwhile. We'll fight them for sure. We're not ducking no wreck, but it's got to be worth our while. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we we don't got to do prove it fights right now. We fought guys like McCumbee. You know, McCumbee fought and gave Caleb
Caleb.
Caleb Plant, he had to get his hands dirty that night. So, he's showing the pedigree of guy. Like I say, Steve Nelson. These are good guys. So he's fighting those guys, but it got to be worthwhile for him. Like Hamza, I wouldn't put him in there with Hamza because his confidence is growing. Hamza's hitting that next chapter. He's fought guys like you say, Adames. He's fought guys like Ammo Williams,
Yeah.
Belanga. You know what I mean? That pedigree of like entering stardom, I'm gonna say. Entering like a stardom.
Yeah.
He's kind of turning that. Pacheco's still like a soft-spoken guy where he's, kind of I say throw him some like older former top champion guys. You know what I mean? Somebody that's been a former champion, something like that. Feed him
Almost
some
like
of those guys.
what was it like they did with Xander Zayas? They threw him in there
Right.
with a former champ, you know.
Yeah, feed him some of those so he can get more. And then they gotta kind of bring him out of shell a little bit too, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't want him right away with Hamza if
Now,
I could help it.
Now, speaking of something there, like Secret Dance Move in the chat says Hamza, Shiraz, and Christian and Billy will eat them up. Pause. But the WBC did kind of order Hamza, Shiraz, and Christian and Billy last week. So I don't know. Maybe that particular fight could get some smoke behind it, and then that would be the fight that happens next year, which would open the door for someone like Diego Pacheco to have those fights in the interim to build them up with the team that he currently has right now. You know what I mean?
What'd you think about the fight?
What with which one?
Pacheco.
Pacheco?
Pacheco.
Oh, against Sadjo?
Yeah.
I mean, like you were saying, with him not having Jose Benavidez Sr. in his corner, and he was able to kind of get through most of the fight, but I didn't see anything that kind of like separates him to be one of those top guys at 168 compared to, me being at the fight with Christian and Billy and Lester Martinez. That was a pretty good fight, good scrap. But you seen with Billy and Martinez, like those fighters have the elements of being one of the top guys at 168. I'm not necessarily seeing that here with Diego Pacheco as of yet.
Yeah. And like I say, those guys are a little bit older, They're a little bit older. I'm pretty sure they're at least 28, I want to say, at least. So like I say, Pacheco still I don't think he realizes like how good he can be quite yet. You know what I mean? Like when
Right.
you especially young like that, and they
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily like boosting his head up where he's starting to believe in himself, like, oh yeah, he's just getting through off of grit. And you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, but I think he's got some potential because I like when guys get dropped or when they face adversity, how do they respond? And he showed me that he still got dog in him. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's
But
interesting to see.
it's like you're saying though with Pacheco, with him, like his heightened dimensions, you would think you would see more elements from him. Like if we talk about the thing there with like Hamza Shiraz, he's there at 6'3", and you see that he uses like his reach in 6'3", but he puts a lot of punches together, behind his jab, and then following through with that. We haven't necessarily seen that here with Diego Pacheco as of yet. Secret Den Smooth suggests this: Jaime Munguia versus Diego Pacheco as a good matchup there at 168. Hmm.
But also too though, bro, and I was listening to one of his interviews. It kind of makes sense though, in a sense why he did change trainers. You know what I mean? When you got two guys kind of similar in weight, which is Benavidez, that's his son. Of course, he's gonna have the
Mhm.
best interest for his boy at hand. And Pacheco probably he probably not getting that attention that he would get as if he was like the main guy at his gym. You
Yeah,
know what I
pretty much
mean?
like Canelo with his trainer there with Eddie Reynoso, and Eddie Reynoso having like 50 other guys there. Yeah, you know.
So that's probably what Pacheco probably not. He probably not getting that fine tuning. He probably like, okay, that's good. All right, come on, David. You know what I mean? Versus like
Mhm.
Pacheco being the franchise player in a sense, if we were related to like the other sports, a franchise player of his stable where, he might feel like he's an afterthought where he's just getting through it. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
that could be another reason why he's trying to find the right trainer to unlock that. Cause you know what I mean? He probably knows that he got some more that he can, needs pulled out of him. So that makes sense why he switched trainers, especially at this point where he probably feeling like, I'm one of them guys too. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just like a little bro hanging around camp. I'm not just I'm actually I'm a top 10 world rated guy, I'm dangerous, so he
Yeah.
probably feeling like, hey, I'm ready for that. He look like he willing to, go search for it. So that makes sense to me why he switched it up and he made the change that was best interest for him.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, man. We've had like a number of suggestions out there. Like I said, Munguia versus Pacheco. Said like Jamal Charlo as a suggestion. Yeah, I don't know because I think Jamal Charlo is going to be going the WBA route. I was mentioning earlier there that with him being in camp with Coach Ronnie Shields, they're working on seeing about securing a fight that could happen in March or something like that, there for Jamal Charlo. So, we'll see how that goes on that. I did, also mention there with the co-feature about, how that situation is with Joe Cordina winning over Gabe Flores, and how Joe Cordina could potentially face someone like an Abdullah Mason for the world title after Abdullah Mason, gets a, voluntary defense or something like that. So, if you were able to see Joe Cordina, what you think of his performance against Gabe Flores? Because he nearly stopped him at one point.
Right. Well, Cordinez is definitely a game guy. You know what I'm saying? He's one of those top guys that could be in the mix. And that would be a good guy for like you say, possibly Abdullah to take on. But of course, Abdullah he gets the courtesy of getting a walkout fight, celebrate his hometown, and after that, then we can give him Joe Cordina or somebody
Mhm.
like that. But Cordina did fight good yesterday, and Gabriel Flores, I think that might have been his third loss, right? I want to say.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of showing the crossroad for him. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? That's kind of like showing that crossroad of he might not be the ace-sided champion guy that they were hoping for. You know what I mean? Because and I think that was that a hometown fight? Was that like he was a
Yeah,
Cali kid,
because he
right?
was born. He was born there. He was born there.
Right. So Cordina did fight pretty good, and he did have him. He did have him wounded and retreating a little bit.
Hmm.
He did have Flores stunned, I'll say. So I would like to see him versus Abdullah. I think Abdullah coming off of the last fight with his name escaping my mind right now.
Who you
What's the
talking about?
guy he just fought?
What, Mason?
Abdullah just fought. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
same.
Noakes. You know how much different in style is Noakes and Cordina?
Cordina.
How much difference in style are they, like, fighting wise?
Not that much. I mean, we got someone already saying that Cordina is a step down from Noakes, probably in
Right.
the knockout for Abdullah Mason. You know what I mean? I think, with what Noakes is probably like a younger version right now of Joe Cordina. So
Yeah, I would like that. You know what I mean? I think that would be is Cordina, was that the guy that was training with Bozy and them? Or no? Who the dude that's training with Bozy?
nah, that was the other cat, man. Yeah, I forgot.
One of them guys from like England or
Yeah,
something like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But Cordina's fought some decent guys. So I would like to see, that's a good resume name right there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and he got knocked out by what was that? Anthony Casasi. I mean, he did fight, Edward Vasquez and Shavkat Rakhimov, so he's had a couple of good wins around that 130, 135 pound division, But
Yeah, I would like Abdullah versus him because he was a former world champion. Um, that's a good resume name right there. That's guys to fill out, quality guys to fill out the resume and help him grow. So I would love to see Abdullah versus Joe Cordina next. Actually, that's a great fight.
or shout out Z Pacino in the live chat. He says Cordina is more of a boxer, but Noakes is better though. You know what I mean? New Era TV in the building says Abdullah Mason versus Albert Bell, the Ohio Bowl. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if they would set that
Albert
up.
Bell, man, he might gotta get on Turkey good side to get him a fight because these guys ain't just gonna willingly. He gonna have to holler at Turkey, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
he's
that's
going through
it.
these regular promoters, he
Mhm.
not going.
Yeah,
Them
he ain't
guys
getting no
not gonna
Turkey.
sign up to fight at Albert Bell, bro. He
Yeah.
he, he not gonna get that. He gonna have to get with Turkey, and then Turkey gonna have to drop that bag off and make these guys want to fight him, bro.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
It
it
shot
ain't gonna
a
happen.
secret dance move. Yeah, Jack Catterall is the one that was out there.
Catterall.
So
So what you think about the lightweight division?
I mean, you got, like I said, with the Abdullah Mason acquiring the WBO belt, you're gonna have the upcoming fight for the IBF with uh, Andy Cruz and who has
Retire.
the belt? Right, yeah, Murataya. So I mean, kind of talking about that. And then we got to see what's up with this WBA thing because Tank Davis still got the belt, and who knows what they're gonna do with that, right? Um, and I just got to see like how it shapes itself out because you're gonna have Shakur going up to 140 to challenge the top guy at 140. So and then Shock, yeah, he got that interim belt, but he already dropped that belt. So
With
now
the
it's like
interim belt, I thought he dropped the 130 belt. I thought he said he was going
no. He dropped the interim, 135 pound belt. So he's looking to see if he can
okay.
get something at 130 with his full title there. So we got to see what happens with Murray Cruz. When that fight comes up, Abdullah Mason is gonna have his voluntary defense, I think, because I don't think he's gonna go up against another top contender there. And then, well, it said Tank, and the thing with Tank is he said he's recovering from an injury or whatever it is, and then he said he'll entertain having a rematch with Isak Pitbull Cruz. So if he's going to be doing that, then what are you still doing with the WBA lightweight title? I mean, either just I would just say give up the belt, man, because it's like, hey, that's one less sanction fee that you would have to pay. You know what I mean? So it's either like fight someone like a Floyd Schofield if the WBA decides that Schofield is the mandatory challenger, or just say, hey, let me just go up and fight an Isak Cruz and not even worry about paying the WBA any sanctioning fees.
Do you think Schofield would excite Tank to want to get in camp and fight him?
Nah, not unless if he already said something, but nah. And I was talking about the thing with the WBA convention. I mean, that's going on like right now over in Orlando. So I'm not sure if they've gone through the thing with the lightweight rankings or whatnot. already, but maybe they have something, tomorrow or the last day, which is the 16th. So that's the thing about it.
I like what's that guy from Newark and that other guy that do the backflips, man. What's that guy's name to do the backflips?
Well, I mean, we had something going on with that newer guy and the guy that is doing backflips. They did have a press conference that was last week that was kind of uneventful compared to their conversation with that Versace guy from Ring Magazine. But that fight's coming up on January 31st. So it'll be a pretty interesting matchup. Right there.
So what does that do? What does that say for the sport of boxing? And what does that say for each competitor, each one of those guys willing to,
Okay.
put it on the line?
I mean, I said that I said this before the press conference, and I said this after the press conference. To me, even though both of those guys have kind of like been there around the top of their respective divisions, right? It's something where they're not fighting guys within the top guys within their division. And to be honest, is it something that the fans have really like requested? Like compare this to like Teofimo Lopez and Keyshawn Davis when both of them have been going back and forth with each other over the past couple of years, right? But has anyone really like suggested like a fight with Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson? Not really. So it's like, okay, Teo isn't necessarily unifying at 140. Shakur Stevenson isn't, having a unification bout at 135. So it's like, okay, now we're just, putting these two fighters together. You know what I mean?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think it does do numbers, of course, because these are two of the top. I mean, they probably looking at it from like that standpoint of two. You know what I'm saying? Like, what
Mm,
other dancing partner would really be worth them? Like I'll say, how guys get up. Who else in their divisions that's gonna make them really wanna, And I don't think T.O. probably like, man, I put my work in. These other guys, I want to see these other guys earn a title unification bout with me first. I just feel like T.O. just feel like he's just underappreciated. You
mm,
know what I mean? And he probably feel like Richardson Hitchens getting the belt from who was it? Liam Paro.
yeah.
He probably feel like,
I mean, but as I was saying with them, like y'all got the same manager, but I mean, if y'all don't want to, y'all, acting buddy buddy after Richard Hitchens defeated George Kambosos and all that type of stuff, and y'all want to fight, cool. But maybe it's more about the situation with the other titles. Like you said with Richard Hitchens, right? He got that belt from Liam Paro, who got that belt from Subio Matias, right? You got the thing there with the WBC. You had, Alberto Puello, getting the belt. And then he loses it to, Subriel Matias. You know what I mean? And then the WBA, you had Isaac Cruz with it at one point. Then Ryo had it. And then the next bout, you had Gary Antoine Russell winning it. So it's like, those belts have been, changing over time after time after time. So maybe that doesn't, bring in that opportunity to unify the belts. But you know, still you do have some highly rated fighters at 140 pounds for Teofimo Lopez to fight. And then outside of his bout that he had against Arnold Barbosa Jr., right? He hasn't had really those high level fights within the 140-pound division. Real quick, shout out to all of those that's chatting there. The chat is pretty hot right now. It said Secret Dance who said like don't forget Kid Austin Ford Schofield. Yeah, I mentioned him. It's just what did they say in reference to the WBA and if they're going to actually name Floyd Schofield as a mandatory challenger for Tank Davis. Interesting comment from my guy Jay Palon. He says that Tank is like the Errol Spence of his division at this point. I don't know, Jay. You might have to, expound on that one there real quick, man. What do you
Earl
say?
Spence was getting busy though. I ain't gonna
Yeah,
lie.
he
Earl
was.
Spence
He
was he
was.
was fighting some dudes, boy.
Yeah.
Earl was fighting.
Yeah, but the thing there, but Secret Dance says like, hey, folks forgetting that Tank has wins over Frank Martin and two other current champions at 147 pounds in Mario Barrios and Rolando Rolly Romero. So there you go. You know what I mean? Uh, so I mean, yeah, the thing with Stevenson and Tio, we gonna see how that goes and things like that. Some folks were talking about it, after the press conference, and then you had the whole little back and forth with Keyshawn Davis and Richard Hitchens after the press conference, and after that, like pretty much most of the media that was there, that was all they were talking about was that clash, there and them having a potential fight. And hey, I was boosting it up, and I was talking with your boy, man, Keith Connolly. Man, I was like, saying, hey, yo, let's make it happen. He's like, yo, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it in Norfolk. Let's do it in Norfolk. He's like, nah, it's gonna be in New York. I was like, oh, come on, man.
Nah, not in Norfolk.
Yeah, it's like not in Norfolk, man. But
not as the champion. I ain't going down there. Not as the champ.
the champion ain't necessarily gonna do all that. You feel me? So that's the thing about it, right? But I think that would be a really intriguing fight there for the 140-pound division to have Richard Hitchens there, up against Keyshawn Davis. And hey, if you could have someone like a Shakur Stevenson fight in his first bout at 140 against the Teofimo Lopez, then you can have something there with Keyshawn Davis in his first fight at 140 against the IBF champion there in Richard Hitchens. So, hey, why not?
I mean, that's definitely. I do like that fight, and when I did see that, I did like get wide eyed, like, oh, you know what I'm saying? As us in the boxing world, that stuff is like bad girls club to like the other, like, oh my god, look at this drama, like what I mean,
Yeah,
that's exciting to us.
yeah.
So you take a guy like Keyshawn is one of the young stars in the sport, definitely. He is when you see his name and you do want to tune in and check out and see what he's got going on, what he's saying, and he backs it up with his performances. He did have a lot of good momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And like I call my little stuff boxing stocks. He had some hot stock where we buying in the Keyshawn Davis stock. We buying in.
Right.
Boxing stock, we buying in. We buying Keyshawn Davis. Then he had that hiccup. We pull out. Everybody's pulling out. You know what I'm saying? It's still a hot stock, but it was a little bit of controversy. Richardson Hitchens, I think he's a world-class fighter for sure. I had seen him fight, and I don't really see Hitchens fight all his fights, but I watched when he fought the brother that's from Baltimore from here. Was it Hawkins? I want to say Iceman.
Yeah, Lee Hawkins.
That's back when they was like, I guess, competing for a Mayweather roster spot or something like that.
That's exactly what happened.
And I seen his skills. I said, okay, shorty, nice.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I want to see him fight. Like when you fight somebody, I want to see you fight, go up that ladder, basically. I want to see you keep fighting guys that's at that. I want to see you kind of, I can say, nah, this is the guy. He's fought some guys like Lemos. I think, to me, in my opinion, I think he had to get his hands dirty for that fight. You know what I'm saying? Lemos was a tough fight for him. He had to definitely, that showed me flaws in his game or areas of improvement that he got to work on. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that kind of, I took a little bit of my stock out when I seen him fight Lemos. Of course he got with Eddie. Of course Eddie's gonna throw him a bone because that's gonna look good for the not the label, the promotion company. You know what I'm saying? If we got all these belts and the champions, of course we're gonna take care of you. He fought, what was it, Cambosis. Cambosis was going through the ringer, so that was a easy lick for him. Yeah. Who he fought before Cambosis? Paro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He fought Paro, where it was like, stylistically, he probably can edge these guys, but I still remember that tough night he had against Lemos. And Davis, did Davis stop Lemos? That was the fight Lemos came overweight, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? When you take, to me, a common opponent and how they dispose of them, there's still things in Hitchenson's game that got to be worked on. I'm not 100% convinced that when he gets to that cream of the crop, they say cream always rise to the top. When he gets to those top guys, maybe like you say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just throw T.O. out there. I'm gonna say guys like Gary Antoine Russell first. A guy who's adamant about saying Richardson Hitchens' name. He's being very direct with what he's saying. I want Richardson Hitchens. He's being very direct in his approach.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like that. Like you say, Keyshawn Davis. Who else is out there at 140 that I would probably like to see him fight? Subriel Matias, a guy that he was a mandatory challenger for the
Mm-hmm.
IBF belt, and he kind of
Yeah, he kind
danced
of,
around a little bit.
yeah.
I would like to see also him versus like Tito Mercado. That's an in-house
Mm-hmm.
fight. So there's some guys out there that I would or it's a lot of guys, bro. It's a lot of guys out there that I would love to see Hitchens before I say he's got the skills for sure.
Yeah.
But I want to see him against neck and neck against one of those top guys. Keyshawn too at 140. I want to see him in a good mix up as well. You know what I'm saying? Keyshawn definitely got it, but I want to see him fight I mean, let me see who's on that list.
I mean, the thing is, before they brought up the whole joint with Keyshawn and Richardson Hitchens, they kind of like teased at a potential rematch with Keyshawn Davis and Nahir Albright. But I don't think that's going to happen. I still am kind of curious as to what happened in a conversation with Keyshawn and Richard Hitchens and the parties of those two guys, because when I initially was there when they were going back and forth, it was mentioned by Eddie Hearn that the fight could have been on that January 31st card. And he said like somebody turned it down. And I'm like, and that was really interesting. But
Yeah, I heard those guys was talking high. They was a little too high on that tag. I heard.
it might have been. Yeah, it might have been. So maybe they had to, go back into the, discussion room or whatever it is and redo the terms for if they want to go ahead with the fight. But I mean, given what, people have seen and that it's, generated a lot of buzz, then it's like, okay, you know what? Let's see if we could come up with something and make this fight happen, because it could, really, gain some traction in the super lightweight division. We'll see what happens there with that. Now, as far as the the fight card on January 31st, now I haven't necessarily like seen anything as far as like any announcement for that as of yet, but word is that you might see Carlos Adames going up against Austin Ammo Williams. So
Mo.
he would defend the WBC middleweight title, and you would have the thing there with Bruce Carrington being able to fight on there, and this time it would be for the full title there, as it's going to be him against Carlos Castro for the WBC featherweight championship, since the full title is vacant due to Stephen Fulton's loss. You know what I mean? So those are a couple of bouts that's going to be on or should be on there for Ring 6. Or whatever it is. Secret Dance Move. Shout out to Secret Dance Move on the chat. He says the 140-pound division is stacked. You got Teofimo Lopez, Subriel Matias, Gary Antoine Russell, Frank Martin, Keyshawn Davis, Adam Azim, Richard Hitchens, Dalton Smith, Tito Mercado, Alberto Puello, Jermaine Ortiz. So you got all of that, right there. And
They also got what's my man Oscar Duarte.
yeah, you got Oscar Duarte.
He's sneaky. People ain't gonna bring his guy. Be guys like us that bring him up, but he's a guy that's in that mix.
Now, Oscar Duarte is a guy that I feel like could be an opponent for Tito Mercado, but we'll see. We'll see. Because Mercado, of course, getting that win, he wants to be in the mix there in the WBO rankings. So I say, why not? But as of right now, for the WBO rankings, they do have Keyshawn Davis rated at number 1 in the WBO right now. But we'll see what that means here. from that perspective. But those are like like I said, those are a couple of fights that are out there that are suggested for the fight card on January 31st. I think it's going to be good, solid card, but that's going to be a busy weekend there because you already have Xander Zayas versus Abbas Barao. That's going to be in Puerto Rico, and you're going to have Baco Mirzalia versus Josh Kelly. It's going to be in Newcastle, England, on that same day. So going to be stacked, full of fights there on that front. You know what I mean? So that's what they got on slate on the docket. And what else is out there? I know that we had like another thing that happened with Badu Jack and Noel McCallan. That was a rematch. That fight, that was a struggle to go through 12 rounds. Y'all was out there. It was over in California. That was a struggle to go through those 12 rounds. McCallan got the decision win, for that. So he's now the WBC cruiserweight, champion. That belt's changing hands. We already know what's going on with Jael Pataya. And you got, Zurdo Ramirez, who has a scheduled bout in January, but has kind of like signed, pretty much virtually to face David Benavidez in May. So you got that's going on with the whole cruiserweight division. So that kind of like sets itself up, right? So that kind of like is what's been happening over the weekend, but if we got to look towards what's happening for this week, right? With fight week for Miami, Florida, all right, and you got shout out to Topic, you got his favorite fighter, Anthony Joshua in action against Jake Paul. It's gonna be on Netflix. They're in an 8-round bout. Okay, now you had the whole thing as far as like the buzz and that type of stuff here for this upcoming fight. And what could Jake Paul do here against someone like an Anthony Joshua, of course, was a former 2-time unified heavyweight champion. This is the first fight back for Anthony Joshua since his loss to Daniel Dubois in September over in Wembley Stadium. Now, there's been a lot, that's been going, behind this particular fight. Jake Paul being who he's been in the sport of boxing, of course, had his big event last year against Mike Tyson. Could have had an event against Tank Davis, but we had what went down. So instead of Tank Davis, now you got Anthony Joshua. And with Joshua, first fight back, he's been in the gyms or various gyms and things like that. But also, some news has been kind of dropping around that he could be involved in a big bout next year, finally, against Tyson Fury. Now, if that is any closer to happening, is there a chance that Anthony Joshua could be overlooking Jake Paul in this upcoming 8-round bout, scheduled for 8 rounds in Miami, Florida?
I don't think he's overlooking him. I think he knows, like, at the face off, I think he knew, like, this guy's not, what I'm saying? I think he kind of had a moment like that where at the face off, where he's looking down at him. He probably like, I'm really a real boxer. You know what I'm saying? And that might have recharged him up a little bit more than what he might have been if he was facing like Francis Ngannou or not Francis. What's my man name? Bacoli.
No,
You know what I'm saying? If he was facing somebody like that, you might have seen a little bit different approach. But him coming into it and seeing the height discrepancy with Jake Paul, I didn't know AJ and Paul was gonna be that big of a difference in like height wise. I don't know why. How tall is AJ? Like 6'6"?
Yeah.
So Paul gotta be like 6'2" maybe then or something like that. But I think he just probably looking at it like this guy should not be. And he probably like, if this guy do beat me, I deserve to retire. He probably thinking that, you know what I mean? Because I would have preferred Jake to go after Badu Jack, honestly. You know what I mean? I think he could have had a better chance with Badu.
Hey, look at that Badu Jack in that fight. won that fight.
For real though, I think
Because
honestly, bro, I think Jake
look,
could have got in there and moved around with Badu,
yeah, move
and
around a little bit because you see Badu Jack really ain't do much of nothing for like 5 rounds or something. You know what I mean?
I would have honestly liked Jake to go after Badu. I'm dead serious, bro. Like,
Yeah,
cause his last few performances have been like he's just the love of the sport, him just going through it.
yeah,
He don't got that hunger in there no more. He's just going through it because I got the belt and let me go out here and go perform. But he don't got that hunger. It shows in his performances, like you said, when he's kind of just going through the motions type thing. I would have preferred Jake instead of AJ. Because to me, if AJ does, I don't care what happens in this fight. If AJ wins, it's like it's Jake Paul. You're supposed to do that.
right.
You know what I mean? It's not
Mhm.
like, and if Jake Paul wins, it's like okay, but Anthony Joshua gains nothing for me from this fight. As far as like boxing wise, it don't matter if he
Mhm.
knock him out in the first. I don't care if he come out there and knock him out with a feint. It's like
Yeah,
you're AJ.
like you said, yeah, AJ is supposed to do that. You know what I mean?
This guy's not even a heavyweight. So, you know what I mean? But if he go out there and Jake Paul come out and close his eyes and hit him with a overhand joint and he buckle, he's that much goods, Mel. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? AJ, it might be time. So AJ's got to come out and look like prime AJ, and if he do fight Fury, I think Fury, depending on the mental space, because everything is subject to change, I think
Yeah.
Fury would 'cause I haven't seen it in AJ, bro. His last few performances, I could tell he almost waiting for a reason to retire, bro. He's hanging on for the love of the sport, but
We'll see, man. But he's been doing work over in like I think they said Spain, working with the team there for Lomachenko's team or whatnot. Um, we had like he did like they released a video of him like doing work out there, that type of stuff. So he's kind of like focused on this. Like someone was saying there. He's coming back from shoulder surgery and that type of stuff. So we got to see like how he's able to properly put punches together, rotate and that type of stuff, or if he really has to even do that. Because like you said, this thing shouldn't even last 2 or 3 rounds. I've been calling it like for 3 rounds. They got the over under for this particular fight at 2.5 rounds. 2.5. That's it. And the thing is, right now on DraftKings, if y'all on y'all do DraftKings, they have it at even odds for over under 2.5 rounds. So you can't even really get much more for like picking one of those two. You know what I mean? But
I
they
think Jake's scared a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like him, like it's different when you popping it online. You know
yeah
what I mean? It's one thing, but then when you see a person face to face and you feel their energy,
yeah
you know what I'm saying? I think that made Jake shrivel up a little because he's not talking crazy like how he was. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? I ain't none of the face offs. I ain't really seen him acting too wild, And if he is, I don't know. I ain't really been too tuned in to know, but I ain't nothing been going viral like when he was at the Tank press conference. He was popping a little bit more. When he fight these other guys, he popping it. But
I mean,
when he had that
he
face to
wasn't
face with
really.
AJ,
Hey, remember that first press conference with Tank? He wasn't really popping all that type of stuff, unless if it was like some type of direct, like verbal jab at Tank Davis or something. But it wasn't like somewhere he's like being boosted up. Shout out to Jay Pilard, man. He says you're being un-American. You gotta go with Jake Paul. Come on, man. I'm just trying to pick who I would feel is a better fighter. Oh man. When somebody said, "Oh yeah, here's a request here." It says, "Can you guys discuss Usyk versus Wilder, which seems to be close to be announced?" I'm hoping that it would be announced because it was something that I've kind of brought up as a potential fight to happen for Alexander Usyk. Because if you think about it, you think of the fights that he's had against two fights against Daniel Dubois, two fights against Tyson Fury, two fights against Anthony Joshua. You get those wins against Fury and Joshua in the heavyweight division. Two of the top guys that have been out there for the heavyweight division. There's only one fighter that's left out there, and that is Deontay Wilder, right? And if y'all flash back to what was going on with the WBO, and when Joseph Parker held the WBO interim title, and they ordered for Usyk to fight Parker, and Usyk was like, you know what? Nah, I'm good, right? Then Parker had his fight with Fabio Wardley and ends up getting stopped by Wardley, right? So with me seeing that, I'm like, you know what? You got guys like a Fabio Wardley that's, kind of young in the game. You got a Moses Atama that's coming up that's young in the game. Do we really think that Alexander Usyk is going to get in the mix with one of those guys? Nah, I don't think so. So, with that being said, who else would be left for Alexander Usyk to fight? If he ain't gonna fight, the WBC interim champ, he ain't gonna get in the mix with him, right? And the thing is, you already got Agacabio. They already booked him in a fight. He's going up. He's going to be fighting in Germany, right? So if you're gonna have that happen, we already seen what happened there with the WBA belt. So then, who else could be out there for Alexander Usyk to fight? And I'm like, man, I think it's about that time. You know what? Have that fight with Deontay Wilder. And I'm thinking that we could be close to having that fight take place, man. You know what I mean? And it says, yeah, it's a huge Wilder fan. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like saying, hey, if Usyk ain't gonna fight Joseph Parker, if he ain't gonna fight Fabio Wardley, if he ain't gonna fight Agit Cabello, then who else is out there for him? He done already beat Dubois and Joshua twice. He done beat Fury twice. Like, he ain't gonna be fighting someone like a Zhilei Zhang. That ain't gonna happen. So why not go ahead and have a fight with Deontay Wilder?
I mean, as far as like the sport of boxing goes, right? I respect Usyk. Like, to me, that's like a nice resume building, finishing out, completing like all the top names in that heavyweight era of this last heavyweight era. Because like right now, the heavyweight era kind of up in the air. You know what I mean? It ain't really like no, like Moses might be the young gunner, but it's not heavy. So for him, like you say, to have fought all those guys and cycled through them 2 times already is like, let me go ahead and add the dangerous, you know what I mean, like a Hall of Fame icing. Like he's putting the sprinkles on the top of it. That cake right there was like,
Yeah.
I fought AJ twice. I fought Fury twice. I fought, he can say Wilder. You know what I mean? I fought Dubois. Like, just sprinkles to me. I don't think, and of course, I'm a huge Wilder guy. When Wilder was at his prime, before those 2 wars with Fury, Wilder was probably the most feared man in that division. Them guys were staying. Those guys that are calling his name now, after he's been in a couple tough battles, wouldn't have dared spoke his name then. Like a guy like Anthony Joshua made sure he stayed across that pond away from him. Fury, he got into it, so I respect those guys. But right now, to me, Wilder, his best days, I think we might have seen his best days, especially for a guy like Usyk, who's hot. You know what I mean? I think Usyk would be too sharp. His movement is too much for Wilder. Wilder has never, and he's like 40, I think, something like that now.
Mhm.
He's been out the ring for a little while. He had one fight where I think he went the full
Yes.
distance. I
No, he got a
believe.
stoppage on that.
How many rounds did it go?
That was 7 rounds where he stopped Tyrell Herndon.
Okay, well, even in that fight, I didn't see that old bomb squad bomber. You know what I mean? I didn't see that I seen a little uncertainty. And he fought Big Bang, and he kind of had a tough night against Big Bang. Then he fought Joseph Parker. Whereas, like, to me, he started becoming a B-side guy, and I didn't like that. You know what I mean? That's just me being a fan of him. I didn't like him being like that B-sided guy. And to me, like, I don't think Usyk and Wilder as a fan is a good match at this point. You know what I mean? Because Wilder is kind of not the same dangerous guy like when he fought Stavern and he came out and he hit Stavern with that right hand. You know what I'm saying? And Stavern, like, he like almost like he got hit with a cannon, blew back. You know what I'm saying? And he stood there and he looked at him. He's not that same guy anymore. You know what I mean? If he was that Deontay Wilder, or if he still had a little bit of that in him, then I would say this would be a better fight. But he don't got that. It's like he's still trying to figure out after having to pick himself up off the canvas a couple of times. Like, he's doing it for the love of the sport. You know what I mean? But he don't got that. I think a little bit of his hunger is gone a little bit too. You know what I mean?
Word. Shout out to Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more in the building. Checking in. He says Wilder couldn't catch Zalay Zhang or Joseph Parker with that right. What makes y'all think that he could catch Alexander Usyk with it? Hey, I mean, it is boxing. You know, anybody. Hey, it's the theater of the unexpected. You know what I mean? It says what Siggy Dancer said. Wilder seems to have got that mojo back. He seems like a new guy in recent interviews. I don't know, man. Maybe we get the bomb squad, back or whatever it is, right? But we'll have to see, depending on if they have locked down a fight with Alexander Usyk. You know what I mean? Because to me, I think having a fight like that would kind of get, Wilder back. It would either be Usyk or Anthony Joshua. Any other fight that would be out there for Deontay Wilder, I don't think he would have like that type of energy, but it would have to be something where he could, win the world title once again or finally have that grudge match against Anthony Joshua. But outside of that, yeah, I don't think fight there in the heavyweight division would really kind of like get him motivated like that. You know what I mean?
How come that fight didn't have no traction? Even still, like, I would have loved, and I think Wilder was adamant saying that he wanted to fight AJ, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was very adamant over the years to say he wanted AJ. Even with these guys kind of on that backside of their greatness, how come we couldn't see those two guys kind of get it on? And that to me would have been a great fight for them guys, like with where they at.
It's Eddie Hearn. You know how like people talk about, at least with this, right? You have Wilder and Joshua. It's almost like what we had 20 or so, 25, man, more than 25, 30 years ago with Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe, right? The reason why Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe didn't happen was because of Rock Newman. The reason why we haven't gotten Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua is because of Eddie Hearn. Promoters are basically just getting in the way of making these fights happen. Regardless of how much the fighters want it, the promoters will do a couple things to kind of like block it. So, like in the recent example, right? Because what ended up happening, you had Deontay Wilder involved with Matchroom on a card with like that 5v5,
which didn't make sense
Wilder
to me.
Going up against Zalay Zhang.
Why is AJ not repping Matchroom?
Like, why are you not having that? So it's almost like, okay, yeah, we could put Deontay Wilder in this position, but Anthony Joshua is like at this particular level still, regardless of what has happened in his career. He's still like the top money guy in the heavyweight division by a significant margin against a lot of these other guys. So we're not gonna have them involved in like a 5v5 like that. No, we're gonna put them out to the side and have them be involved in big events. That's why
Ngannou.
instead of like having something like an Ngannou, like they're like, okay, we'll put up a whole bunch of money for a fight against Francis Ngannou, but we won't. You know what I mean? So that's the thing about it. So, like I
I
said,
said
man,
Deontay Wilder is an accomplished Ngannou for you.
but I'll say this, like I said, I'm still picking Joshua over Wilder, man. But I just feel that a lot of times promoters get in the way of having fights that would have been, monumental for the sport and just blocking them from happening or taking place. So that's the thing I feel like with Eddie Hearn when it comes to Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. And so, with that being said, that's why we had this possibility of Deontay Wilder versus an Alexander Usyk. You know what I mean? And
But don't you see like my theory with the whole like the 5v5 matchroom thing is like that was supposed to be signees, I thought, representing their I keep saying label like this is the rap game.
right, right,
Representing their promotion
right.
companies. We got Deontay Wilder, who's never been signed to Matchroom. That's the captain. That's the guy we put in. To me, it felt like they were trying to sacrifice him after his, you know what I mean? I feel like one, I don't think he had a promoter. I don't think Wilder had a promoter for a little while. I think he might have been like a free agent kind of guy where some of these unfavorable matches to get like the payday opportunities might not have been there if he didn't take them,
Mhm.
but I feel like why is AJ not representing Matchroom as the bread and butter, the face of Matchroom boxing? How was Deontay Wilder the guy to face Zhang? And that's a fight that Zhang and AJ had history because I thought they fought
Yeah, they
in the
did.
Olympics and stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just like I would have loved to see a fight like that. I would have loved to see AJ versus like a Bacole. I would have loved to see AJ versus Wilder. But we getting Jake Paul and we getting Francis Ngannou. That's a little disappointing to me as a fight fan. Is like we don't fight real heavyweight contenders. We make exceptions and say money, 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 and we'll take lesser, less dangerous, less rewarding fights and fight Jake Paul. We could have fought Age. I mean, we could have fought Wilder if we wanted to. You know what I mean? I guess or whatever. We could have fought
Mm.
Wilder. Why are we fighting Jake Paul? Jake Paul's a 10-0, 12-1 cruiserweight.
For Joshua, right? So even with that, they didn't even have like Wilder under consideration because I don't know if he mentioned it in a press conference. He's had it like on a recent post that he's made on YouTube that his plan was to either fight on December 27th or even November 22nd and just be like part of that card, just be a late entry, have an 8 round bout, go up against like a what was it, like a Cassius Chaney or something like that, or whatever it was, and have an 8 round bout, right? And then all of a sudden, this the offer with Jake Paul comes up, and it's like, well, okay, we get tens of millions of dollars for fighting Jake Paul. Why not go for it, right? So he's still, coming back from his injury, and either would have had like a fight 8 round bout in the interim over in Riyadh or something like that, or having this opportunity come up and be like, okay, if y'all willing to pay me this money, if Netflix wants, a fight of this magnitude to happen and they're willing to accept it, all right, cool, I'm with it. But that's the whole gist of it is like, okay, if y'all still, like I was saying before, Anthony Joshua still having that name tied behind him to be able to generate that much money and that much interest, just like a Canelo Alvarez is to, around America, US and Mexico, right? So they pretty much like did the same thing right here. But at the same time, you're still not getting that fight between, Joshua and Wilder. And we still have to make sure that it's actually signed we still haven't gotten Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. We haven't gotten either one of those fights. You know what I mean? So until we actually see pen to paper for Joshua versus Fury, you still have to dock him for that. You know what I mean?
So you being, like I say, a journalist and a person of the sport, right? You have been adamant about the kid that does the backflips at 140, Mr. Teofimo Lopez, not facing those other champions and unifying in those divisions. And you've been very adamant that you would like to see him fight those kind of guys. I guess that's a testament to a true champion, whatever. What does that say for Anthony Joshua? Kinda, I don't want to say alluding, but not taking those challenges. Well, we got guys like Martin Bacol, we got Moses, we got F.A. Ajagba, we got Philip Hargovich, we got,
So here's
Fabio, we got
so
Deontay Wilder, we got King Kong
here's the
Ortiz,
thing. Here's the thing with that.
Jake Paul.
And this is but this kind of like goes to what I was saying before in reference to Anthony Joshua. Once they built him up to be at a certain level there in the UK, he got to be at another level to where it's like a Canelo Alvarez, right? So that it doesn't matter who your opponent is, you're always
I
going to get
got
that
you.
interest, right?
But
So
still, why
so
not fight these other guys though, right?
but here's the thing though. Anthony Joshua has already done the unifications, right? He had the fight against Vladimir Klitschko. He had the fight against Joseph Parker, right? So after getting the IBF belt over Charles Martin, he unified against Vladimir Klitschko. Then he unified again against Joseph Parker. And then we were trying to get that fight with Deontay Wilder, but that ended up not happening at the time. And you see that he lost to Andy Ruiz Jr. And then after that, you had the whole thing that was in works with the beginnings of the whole stuff with Saudi Arabia, because remember the rematch between Joshua and Ruiz was really that first big event kind of like in Saudi Arabia before we had the whole thing with Turkey Al Sheikh and all that type of stuff, right? So that was kind of like the beginnings of all that. You see what I mean? And then after that, you kind of like seen them get those like fights where he's generating, money and interest and not necessarily having to face a guy like a Tyson Fury or, a Deontay Wilder, but then be able to have the fight that he had against Alexander Usyk first. So they had him going up against Usyk, and they didn't really expect him to lose to Usyk. So he had to go through a rematch with Usyk, and then he loses that. And so after that, he had to redo it all over again. So that's the whole thing that's been going on within the heavyweight division when it comes to Joshua. And then the thing there with, like on the flip side with Deontay Wilder, having his momentum, then going up against Tyson Fury, then having a rematch in 2020, and then him having a loss. So that's kind of like how that goes. But fast forward to now, it's like, okay, you still have someone like Anthony Joshua having the status that he has to where he could still face anybody in the heavyweight division, regardless of their status, and still be able to generate a lot of interest. So that's the thing about it.
No. My question, right? Like you saying, if he can do that, which is cool,
Shout
and
out
I don't
Lance.
disagree with that, huh?
No, I'm like on the chat. Shout out to Lance Meyer in the building. There, my guy Tip Bayless in the building, man. What's going on? So
But
yeah,
like I was saying, I get that, and he's A side, cool, that's cool. But just because you A side, if that's the case, then T.O. should be fighting freaking what's the dude named Dean the Great then. You know what I mean? He's
okay,
built his name up to be able
okay.
to not
So
unify.
all right. So that was the thing. You're comparing Anthony Joshua to a Teofimo Lopez, right? Okay. Let me go through something real quick.
Because he could have fought Moses.
Kubrat Pulev, because I don't know like how the UK was like late 2020, right? When you still had the whole thing with the lockdown and that type of stuff, right? So I don't know if they had like no crowd at Wembley Arena or whatever it is, right? But compare like an Anthony Joshua facing someone like a Kubrat Pulev or a Jermaine Franklin or Robert Helenius over in the UK to a Teofimo Lopez facing a Sandor Martin, right? Or someone mentioned earlier, Steve Claggett. Like that fight against Steve Claggett in Miami Beach. Like if it's Teofimo Lopez, and if he would be like that popular guy, he wouldn't be fighting in like those type of venues in Miami Beach, right? So you can't necessarily put Tio in that same, light because he's not like having those fights over and over and over in like a Madison Square Garden or, say like another large venue. You know what I mean? So that's the thing about like, say, for example, with his upcoming bout against Shakur Stevenson. It's Madison Square Garden. It's getting some good buzz, but it's a fight that's as they say, of high magnitude with two high level fighters or two highly rated fighters, in comparison to like a Teofimo Lopez against like who he fought last here in Arnold Barbosa Jr. If it wasn't part of like that ring event over in Times Square, how much interest would the public have for Teofimo Lopez against Arnold Barbosa Jr. as far as like being able to buy tickets and watch the fight?
Same thing for AJ versus freaking Francis Ngannou. That was in Saudi, right? How much interest is people gonna generate to come see him fight a 0-0 UFC fighter versus, like I say, he could, if he's an A-side guy, he could fight whoever, right? You could throw something cool at Moses, young guy. You should be able to jump on him. You know what I mean? Like I say, the legend killer. You know, they should be able to, like, you seen the John Cena joint yesterday?
Man, hey yo,
It could have been like that.
No, man. Hey, you know what? I was, I went by there. They had the line for the fan fest around like 2 blocks. They had the whole thing with the fan store, the Fanatics fan store, something that was going down the block. I didn't watch the match. I just seen the whole thing with the result, and I'm like, come on, y'all. This is what we're doing. This is how we go in this. Like, come on, man. Yeah, that was crazy work. Uh,
Yeah, I didn't expect that, bro.
yeah,
I didn't.
I mean, they expect that, but I mean, come on, man. But yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe they'll try to do something here for, I guess, Anthony Joshua to. I don't know if he'll face like a Fabio Worley or somebody like that. But
Moses, the legend killer in Talmud, the face
yeah,
of UK. That would have been a good send off right there. If AJ beat him, AJ's back to man. If
yeah.
he loses, the UK is in good hands.
Yeah, but I mean that's not
Right?
gonna happen. You know what I mean? Shout out to my guy Just Do Boxing in the building. We got my guy Tip Bellis in the building. He says, "What Dean's fighting the Vargas brother?" Hey, you gonna have to get at me, Tip, on that front. There, but yeah, Secret Dancer says, "I think T.O. versus Shakur is more for the hardcore fans. Not sure if it'll appeal to casuals. All I know is, man, the tickets are, they've been moving pretty good, so far." Well, I had to like get on the joint for Ticketmaster, real quick. Yeah, I got the direct link, but I had kind of shown it before that the tickets were moving pretty good. Like after the press conference on Wednesday, and then Thursday was open for the public, so it was kind of like moving there pretty quick. He says shout out to John Cena retired. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't know how that went, and then they said, man. He said the crowd was really pissed off at Triple H or something, man. But I don't know, yo. But yeah, they
That's how
said
Talmud was gonna do AJ,
when they go back
the
him.
legend killer.
Oh man. But hey, they got they still got the whole thing with the section 200 still for like $135. So you still have some time to get them tickets, but it's like the nosebleed seats, because even if you get pretty close on a 200 level, them tickets get to about like 200 something dollars, like $210 or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? He said, "See to put a guy over." So hey, I mean, yeah, I mean it happens. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what was it? Kurt Angle, did something for John Cena. So, I don't know, man.
I
But
started to want to, bro. I wanted to go. I waited too late to get my ticket.
man,
I wanted to go so bad, bro. I want to go to a WWE event so bad, bro.
man,
My
nah.
childhood. I gotta go to one
I
someday
knew
in
that
DC.
if they had that, like his last match was gonna be here in DC, I knew then prices were gonna be absolutely crazy or something. You know what I mean? So, but they
I
had
still
like
thought about going. I said, "It's John
a
Cena, bro."
yeah, but I mean, they had like a whole weekend going on. They had something over at the Howard Theater. You know what I mean? They had the Undertaker and AJ Styles at the Howard Theater and a few other joints going on. But yeah, there was a lot of people out there for the joint, man. It was a good scene, and on top of that, they still had like a holiday weekend joint that was going on across the street. So there was a lot of people downtown DC yesterday, man. It was a crazy scene out
I
there.
seen everybody in the crowd was like this, bro, like mind blown. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I know we did not just see. We thought we was gonna see the. You can't
Yeah,
see
yeah,
me.
yeah,
You know, we ain't see that. He just
yeah. Like, and I'm like, what are we
like
doing?
what?
I was like,
What?
yeah, that was some crazy work. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was an interesting scene there over at the Capital One Arena or whatever they want to call it, this year or something like that. But yeah, back to this thing here with like I said, Anthony Joshua, of course, having his upcoming bout against Jake Paul. It's gonna be live on Netflix. Um,
What about the co-main?
Alicia Baumgartner versus Layla Badoin. She is standing as the undisputed champion there at, as they say, junior lightweight. But given that it's going to be 12 rounds, 3 minutes per round in the WBC, shout out to the WBC, not being involved with this particular matchup since it's going to, they're against having women fighting 3 minute rounds. So, I'm thinking it's just going to be, 12 round fight because you've had it happen with, Amanda Serrano. So I think it's going to be the same thing here. You know what I mean? You do also have the joint there with Anderson Silva versus Tyron Woodley. I think that's going to be interesting to see there. Caroline Dubois, recent signee of Most Valuable Promotions, going to be fighting for the WBC lightweight title, or at least she's defending that title. So you're going to have Caroline Dubois on this fight card. Shanika Johnson defending her bantamweight championship on there. Yukasa Baye defending her strawweight title on there. Shout out to Jamal Harvey. He's going to be added. He's on the card.
DMV stand up.
You got the underdog Avius Griffin there against Justin Cardona. So, a lot of those fights that were originally
He
scheduled.
lost his last fight, right?
Yeah,
Griffin.
yeah,
Did he get stopped or no?
yeah, you got stopped. Yeah, yeah. But the news on that thing there with Avius Griffin was like for this fight, talk about new teams. He's not with Coach Bomac. Yes, he was with Coach Bomac, for a good little bit, but after the loss and that type of thing, nah, he's been working out over by the New England area now, so he's not with Coach Bomac. You know what I mean? Uh, shout out to Secret Dance Smooth saying, therefore, the Tio versus the Core overpriced nosebleed tickets. Like I said, man, I mean, it's one around 135 or something dollars, if you add the tax on there. But if you get a little bit closer on the 200 section, it'll be about $200 for a ticket. So, and I know folks
I mean,
that,
that's decent price because you got to think, bro. How
yeah,
much they be charging around here for like a
well, I don't
a
know because, hey, you got that fight card on January 31st, and you got the Pro Box fight card on January 30th at Maryland Live, man.
yeah.
So, hey,
Who's the main for that one out here? Who's the main event for that
that's the
fight?
thing, man. I ain't even see who the main event on that joint was. Because I don't even know if they like made the full announcement as to who's headlining it. But yeah, we got all of those fighters from the area that's on there, man.
And they putting something together, bro. Because if they could honestly keep those same fighters, because those honestly the hottest fighters in the city.
Yeah,
If
and
you
I
can
think
keep those going,
with what they did in September and all that stuff, and in April, over at Maryland Live, I think they see like how much interest these fighters are having here in the area, so that's why they keep, coming back to do a whole fight card out here. So I think,
and I gotta highlight my man Frankie Scarborough Jr. Man, Frankie Scarborough had a big statement, KO, first round KO,
yeah,
a couple weeks ago down there against a tough guy. I had watched some film on the guy,
yeah,
and
Onyx
I was thinking
Sanchez, yep,
like it's gonna be a decent fight for Frankie because Frankie's a fighter. To
yeah,
me, Frankie's not a boxer. He has the ability, but Frankie's gonna fight you.
yeah,
You know what I'm
he is.
saying? Like Frankie gonna stand, he get touched, boop, 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 boop. Frankie gonna get in there, he gonna fight.
Yeah, he gonna get in the mix. That's the
You
thing.
gonna
He
have the
gonna play
dog
the
with Frankie. You know what I'm saying? And Frankie's a
game.
good fighter. You know what I'm saying? Frankie ain't gonna back down. Frankie, you gonna have to fight Frankie. So for him to get that big statement, knockout,
Yeah.
And then his last fight with the guy was the Pedro Hita. That was a good mix up. I thought
Mhm.
I like fights like that. So I could see what we got. You know what I'm saying? And that was a good, solid fight. Frankie had to get his hands dirty
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah, the thing, yeah,
Frankie had
and
to get
that
his
one,
hands dirty.
yeah, he did, but that one was, a situation where he, basically had to have a fight on that date. Peter Heater was a replacement. Um, they didn't necessarily want to have the fight at that weight class, there for lightweight, but went through it anyway, and still was a good scrap for him. And he
Good
got the
word.
win.
Good word. Good
Good
word.
work. Yeah, yeah.
Because that's going to develop him. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? That's going to pull out stuff in him that he didn't know. And
Yeah,
that's why I said when
exactly.
you fighting guys and you beating guys that you're supposed to beat, you never really go into your full arsenal. It's like
Hmm.
everything if you working on a air conditioning vent or something and everything just goes perfect all the time, you not gonna know all the tools in your bag that you got. And something
Hmm.
go wrong, you like, let me see. Oh, I got this down here. So that was
Yeah,
that kind of fight for Frankie right there, where Frankie's knocking on that door in that
he
division.
is. He is.
Super featherweight is not a lot of moving pieces
It's not.
around, but Frankie, I think he would have to end up going to 35 to get a little more. I think he can position himself at
He
that
could.
division and then move up.
He said he wants to make moves at 130 pounds. He said, with 2026 coming up, he wants to, make moves on that. And, talking with, him and of course, Coach Nesto, that's their plan. And, that's the thing there that they're working with on Pro Box. Cause, I was telling him, we've seen what's happened with, a number of fighters there on Pro Box. They've been able to, get in the mix in Pro Box, get some key wins there, and eventually have a big fight, either being able to win a world title or fight for a world title. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. There is they've been able to sign Francois Scarborough, and he's been very busy. Had, what is it, 3 fights? Yeah, that's like 3 fights this year: April, September, and this recent one here over in Fort Lauderdale on November 21st. So yeah, he's definitely making the moves there while being under Gary Jonas and Pro Box Promotions, as they say, through Pro Box TV. So that's going to be a good little look on that front. They're seeing them back in the ring on January 30th at Maryland Live. So that's most of the stuff there that I got, on the docket, man. Is there anything else that you would want to touch on here before I, bring this to a close here for this edition of the Boxing Source podcast?
I think January 30th, you got two young prime athlete, world caliber guys in their primes facing off with the WBO lightweight champion, was a super lightweight champion, and Teofimo Lopez, world class, exciting showman guy. Got the speed, got the slickness, got the crack. And you got Shakur Stevenson moving up in weight. He had a great performance against Zapata. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of fight style Shakur brings into the ring. Is he going to try to stand in there and pick and pop and bang with T.O., or is he going to be the defensive minded range, fight from range, 1-2 touch boxing kind of guy. That's what's going to determine the style of fight. If he can frustrate Teofimo, Teofimo is an emotional, reactionary kind of guy. He fights off of his emotions. You know what I mean? It
Mostly, yeah.
depends on what kind of fight or how mentally he is in it. I think I would have to favor T.O. because he's more comfortable and he's the champion. So I'm going to favor T.O. because he got the slickness and everything to offset Shakur. And just for me, what kind of style is Shakur going to bring on fight night that can troubleshoot Teofimo? Because we know Shakur can get in his slick range, pick, pop, pop, pop. But can T.O. crack that code and vice versa? Is T.O.'s slickness and style and unorthodox punching ability and speed and power, will that be enough to get in there and demand respect from Shakur? So for the fans, casual, diehard, whatever, I think this is one of the best fights. Young guys in their primes. So you're going to get them both at the top. I think this is one of the best fights that we didn't know that we needed. I think when you really in the boxing, you know that these guys are going to cross paths eventually. But I think this is going to be for sure the toughest fight on Shakur's resume, the fight that we've been looking for Shakur. So if he can beat Teofimo Lopez, Shakur is definitely in that realm. Shakur's had some fights with the guy was an Artem Hartunian, Yoshino,
Yeah.
and Zepeda. I wasn't too crazy about the Zepeda fight. It was a different style, which was cool, but that wasn't a fight that I was, what's the word that we use, clamoring over of. I
Right.
wasn't clamoring over that fight. It wasn't like
But
we was asking to
you
see
kind of like
that.
knew what was going to happen basically before the fight.
But this one right here, I think this is the fight that the boxing world needs to see. This right here, to me, this signifies who that guy is that's in that and coming out of that era. You know what I'm saying? Out of their class of guys, Haney has put his work in where Haney's like on that other echelon list. Teofimo to me has put his work in where he's kind of in that conversation. To me, this is going to be that marquee fight for both fighters, but more so for Shakur with the stock that he had when he was coming into the boxing world as a silver medalist and one of the hottest signees for Top Rank. This would be one of those, if he can pull it off, one of those marquee signature wins. And to me, it's going to be a very great fight. Like I say, Teofimo's he's got everything. He's a showman. He's going to entertain you. He's got the speed. He's got the slickness. He's got the power. You know what I'm saying? It's just his corner and his cohesion. The game plan, if Shakur starts to frustrate him, because Shakur's working with Bud.
Yeah.
So that's as great of as a helper as you can get. You know what I'm saying? So he's going to be prepared. It's just going to be what kind of fight are we going to get that night. So I want to say, starting off the top of the year, this to me is one of the biggest fights, not in just American boxing, but in boxing in general. Teofimo, the WBO champion, versus Shakur. Styles make fights. Who's going to crack the code first? You got a slick boxer puncher versus more of a boxer who's trying to be a puncher as of late. That's the fight we need to see, man. I don't know who's going to win. I got a favorite, T.O., because he's been in those fights, but it's a 50-50 one for me, bro.
Well, we'll see. Like you just mentioned here, winner of this fight should be automatic top 10 pound for pound or even close to
Top 5.
top 5. Okay. Now, I kind of like mention this when the fight was officially announced. Of course, you'll have the thing there with Shakur Stevenson currently at number 8. And I have Teofimo Lopez at number 13 in the Boxing Source pound for pound top 16. Okay. So the winner of this, is definitely going to be in the top 10 and could have a case for being in the top 5, given who currently is at number 5, because that particular person isn't necessarily active at this juncture. But
can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
how do you come up with your pound for pound list? Like how does like I sent you a clip the other day with Senior who was
Mhm.
basically saying like my boy got 2 lineal belts. How are we how are we not in that top pound for pound list and we got 2 lineal titles to show you that we can go pound for pound? How am I not
Okay,
so
so like here's the joint here, where I had the current list, right? You got someone like a Terrence Crawford, right? Of course, three division undisputed. No matter what the WBC says, he's a three division undisputed champion. Okay, you got Alexander Usyk being undisputed at cruiserweight and heavyweight. You got Naoya Inoue being a multi-division undisputed champion. You got Jesse Bam Rodriguez being a two-division unified world champion, having multiple wins over guys that have been floating around or at the top pound for pound list. You got Dimitri Bivol, who was there as at one point the undisputed light heavyweight champion. You got David Benavidez that's been doing work at super middleweight and now at light heavyweight. You got Devin Miles Haney, the current WBO welterweight champion, the former undisputed, once again, undisputed lightweight champion. They're winning the WBC super lightweight title, and as I mentioned, WBO welterweight championship. And then there at number 7 is, number 8 is Ashakur Nafisa Heed Stevenson, who has won the WBO title at featherweight, the WBC and WBO title at super featherweight, and the WBC title at lightweight. They're just going on that front. You know what I mean?
who did he win that WBC title at featherweight against?
Oh, yeah, I said WBO, the
Who did he
WBO
win that
title.
title? Who did he win his first title against?
The guy that has been getting multiple opportunities after multiple opportunities in Joet Gonzalez, who at the time was at 23-0. Okay, so yep, so that was the thing. Then after that, he moved up. Then he got a title there against, of course, Jamel Herring. Then unified it against Oscar Valdez, and then before after that, moving up in that type of stuff. So
Who
that's
did he
why I
get
got
his belt at 35 against?
he got his belt at 135 pounds, going up there
Was that
against,
Della Sant? That was the
yeah,
Della Santos
that's
drink,
the
wasn't
Dallas
it?
Santos. Yep. hmm
That was a controversial fight right there.
That was a fight that I was thankful that I didn't attend. Okay. I was thankful that I did not go to Vegas for that particular fight. Okay.
That was
But
controversial.
uh controversial as in the fight just shouldn't have happened. But I mean, you still have, the overall level there of Shakur Stevenson, and his talent is there within the top 10. Okay. You got Jerron Ennis there at number 9, and Junto Nakatani currently at number 10. There you got Canelo at number 11, Tank at number 12, and Tio at number 13. And like I said, I mentioned this before. Given the status of a couple of those fighters and their level of inactivity, they're going to be, moved around the pound for pound top 16. Someone
So
they
hold on. Can I ask another question? Go ahead. Go ahead. Do what you're doing.
He says Z Patino says Seal hasn't fought anybody or unified. Simple. Well, he had the one fight against Vasyl Lomachenko to become a unified lightweight champion. But outside of that, no. Yeah. What's your question?
Was that 13?
Yes, 13.
How does a guy with 2 Ring magazine belts get listed 13 so low?
Okay. When you defeat Vasyl Lomachenko to become the unified lightweight champion, and then the next fight you lose to a fighter that you basically, at least in my book, should have been highly favored against, because that George Kambosos Jr. is the same George Kambosos Jr. that in his previous fight, I felt that George Kambosos Jr. shouldn't have got the decision over. Okay. So if you are the guy that is coming off of having the knockout win over Richard Comey, following that up with your win over Vasily Lomachenko to become the unified lightweight champion, you should be able to defeat someone like a George Kambosos Jr., who I felt like lost to Mickey Bay in his bout that he had, that previous year, or not the previous year, but not Mickey Bay, excuse me, Lee Selby. That was the fight that I felt like he lost. But even with that, Teofimo, if he's supposed to be at the level that a number of people expect him to be at, he should have been able to handle George Kambosos Jr., and he wasn't able to do that. Compare that to someone like a Devin Miles Haney that was able to do what he did in 2 fights against George Kambosos Jr. and handle that business. So that's on one front. And then the other one is, yes, you do get the win over Josh Taylor to become the WBO and lineal champion there at the super lightweight division. But outside of that, like, what else is there? Like, your fights against Jermaine Ortiz and Skeet Claggett, that doesn't move the needle in comparison to what other fighters within this list have done. So that's kind of like how they have it.
Who else is in the top 10? Let me see. I can't see.
Like I said, you got Junto Nagatani, you got Jerron Boots Ennis, you got Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney.
Has Boots
David
got top 10 resume on him yet?
Boots? Who do you have as a more talented fighter? Boots Ennis or Teofimo
Are we going off of
Lopez?
talent or are we going off of the resume?
I'm going off of multiple things: talent, resume, what he could be in other divisions, right? Because that's the whole thing about pound for pound is
Right.
how would someone like a particular fighter fare in other divisions that either he's close to, or if he had that type of ability in divisions that are like way above them or way below them, right? So from an overall talent standpoint, Jerron Boots Ennis to Teofimo Lopez, who's the more talented fighter? So
I mean, that's a tricky question to ask.
hey,
You know what I mean? It
hey,
is though.
for those that don't know, this is the same guy that was really pushing for Teofimo Lopez to fight Boots Ennis.
I mean, because that's a guy showing me that he's pound for pound. You know what I'm saying? A guy that had, like you say, went from 135 and he jumped in the fire early. I think he was a world champion before he had 20 fights. You know what I'm saying? He might have fought Loma around 20, 22 fights when a lot of guys are knocking on contendership. He was fighting Richard Comey. He was fighting the what's the Asian guy that he had
Nakatani.
beat? No. That TL had beat before Comey, I want to say. It was
Yeah,
a
Nakatani. Masayoshi Nakatani. That was it.
okay. Like he was fighting guys like that, you know what I mean? Where, like you say, at other divisions, then he goes up from that, and then he fights Josh Taylor, who was a former undisputed world champion. Boots to me definitely is a world class fighter. I'm gonna rock with that and reiterate that all day long. But we haven't seen Boots be able to showcase against those guys like for example, him being at 54. If he would have fought and had guys like Sebastian Fundora, if he would have had guys like I say a Lubin, maybe before Lubin got on the backside of things, if he would have fought Keith Thurman and put some guys like that, or Earl Spence, or like we're not gonna remember Stanionis' name as the guy he unified against in 5 years. We're gonna have to go look it up. You know what I
Depends on
mean?
what standing on this does.
But we're not gonna go look up Stanionis, bro. You know what I mean? Stanionis, he was a champion, but he like in 5 years we going like who the heck did he win the belt? That's what I'm saying. Like marquee names. T.O. beat the man, Vasil Lomachenko, who was, they call him high tech, Nomos Lomachenko, the
Yeah.
greatest
Okay.
fighter of this generation. He beats him.
Mm.
That's a high caliber name. Then he goes up to the next weight class and beats, technically, Tio should be undisputed. Technically, like you say, with Bud, technically, he beat the then was a undisputed champion in Josh Taylor, who vacated the belts or whatever, and he's not on the top 10.
No.
Whew.
Okay.
It's a hard knock life
So here's
for us.
so here's the thing, right? And this is why I put like multiple elements on that. You talk about who T.O. fought, but again, there's times where depending on who you're with or who you're signed with could put you in that opportunity to face those high caliber guys. So like for Teofimo Lopez, being under top rank, having that, having a boost to be under top rank. Like for example, we just went through what Heisman Trophy weekend, Heisman Trophy yesterday. They featured him on Heisman Trophy weekend,
And he
right?
produced.
Right. So they kind of like tried to build him up in order to get to that position to eventually fight for, at the time, what the IBF belt against Richard Comey, who was there under top rank, and then Vasyl Lomachenko, who would be under top rank, right? Same case with a Josh Taylor, having a deal or whatever it is with top rank to put him in that particular position. Because outside of that, it wasn't like, if I'm not mistaken, like Teofimo Lopez was a mandatory challenger or anything like that. So maybe he was, but at the time he had already lost to, George Kambosos. So he had two fights at 140 before going up against Josh Taylor. Remember, do I still got it against Sandor Martin, right? So having that in comparison to someone like a Jerome Butsinis, who wasn't like fully signed with, as they say, quote unquote, PBC. So Boots couldn't get that fight with, at the time, Errol Spence Jr., when he was the top rated guy in the IBF rankings, and had to wait it out until Errol Spence had the fight against Terrence Crawford. That fight goes ahead and takes place, right? So he's like, all right, bet y'all had a fight. Hey, I'm still the mandatory. If y'all ain't gonna have a rematch, Terrence Crawford, what's up? He couldn't get that fight either. So you can't get those fights.
Are you stating their case? Are you? I can't hear. I don't even hear nothing that you saying to state their case. You saying they
What
ain't
I'm
fighting
saying is,
nobody
what I said was, you got Teofimo Lopez that's being there under top rank,
and
where
fighting.
where he's able to have those fights against a Vasyl Lomachenko and against a Josh Taylor, in comparison to a Jerome Butsinis that's not signed with someone like a PBC or like a Top Rank or whatever it is. So you're not going to have him have those fights against those guys that you mentioned: Errol Spence,
I'm still missing
Terrence
it.
Crawford, Sebastian Fundora, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter. Like those, like even at welterweight, a lot of those guys were mentioned for Jerome Butsinis, but he wasn't able to secure those fights, mainly because he wasn't fully signed with them. Because you knew that he was fighting under those cards. We seen him up against Karen Chikazi in NDC, right?
And that's what I'm saying, bro. Boots was on that Showtime era
He
where
was on that Showtime
we
era,
said, "Oh no,
but
this is the guy."
yeah,
Since
but
then, since we came out with the fly flashiness when he beat Lipinets and all those guys on Showtime, we have not seen one of those marquee fights for him. You see what I'm saying?
So the question then becomes, who would be that fighter within that time period that he would fight in order to get that? Because remember, again, if you're going to have Spence and Crawford fight each other, right? They had that fight, it goes on, cool. Errol Spence ain't there available, Terrence Crawford moves up. So then who else is out there in the welterweight division for Boots to fight that could get him that name at the time. There really
So
wasn't
how
anybody
how
with it.
how do we get to that number 10 spot then? If that's the case, if it's inconclusive.
How do you get to that 10 spot? Because you've seen the talent from him from that particular point up to now. That's why I
I mean,
said, like,
Tio would probably do the same thing if we was fighting those kind of guys.
we don't know that given what he's done. Again, his performance against George Kambosos Jr. has to count
A
for
split
something.
decision. It was a split. It was a split. It was a
It's
split.
still a loss.
It was a split.
It's still
He
a
lost a
loss.
split decision. That's cool. We lost a split decision. That's okay.
It's still a loss.
We beat
Boots was being
Sandor.
smooth. That is incorrect. Completely incorrect. And I've broken it down multiple times over. That's incorrect.
I didn't hear it. What happened? I couldn't see it.
He puts up hold on. He puts up people forget that Crawford offered Boots to fight and Boots turned it down. That's incorrect. Boots didn't have that opportunity. And remember, Boots was the IBF mandatory challenger. So what happened when Bud had the win and Boots was still the mandatory challenger? So there you go. Says no, it's not. Says on tape, no, it's not. Again, people keep bringing up the whole thing about Boots and his standing with the IBF and the WBO. Again, the WBO wasn't able to follow through with their mandatory challenger. So you can't even bring that up. Can't. Because I know what the direct source or what the direct thing you will point to. Again, when they had their conversation, Boots and Bud directly told him that he had bigger fish to fry at the time. And even during that era, the WBO ordered their mandatory challenger. And that was Alexis Rocha at the time. What happened to that? So there you go on that front. All right.
I mean, we definitely think Boots for like I say, bro. The timing that we seen him was pre-pandemic. That's when Showtime and those guys, Tom Brown, that's when those guys was rolling, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they was pumping, and Boots was emerging as one of those young, talented stars, one of the next future guys of the division. Of course, I wanted to see Boots kind of take like that David Benavidez route then. You know what I mean? Like something similar to that, where it's like, okay, I want Canelo, but if I can't get Canelo, I'm gonna fight Caleb Plant. I'm gonna fight Andre Boo Boo Andrade. I'm gonna fight, you know what I'm saying, all of these other guys to show that I'm there. I'm waiting for that marqueeness. Of course, bro, I'm a Boots fan. Straight up. I think Boots has the goods. I think Boots could wipe out 154. I think Boots could probably wipe out 160. If I'm being quite frankly honest. We haven't seen that dancing partner to rebuttal it. That's what I'm saying. I think for us to put him top 10 pound for pound is a little premature at the moment, considering the lack of definitive statement marquee victories. Who did he get the IBF belt from? I don't even think he had to fight for that. So that's tough for me to say that, he became a champion the way he did, which is cool. I forgot who he defended it against. Corinne, a guy that he had beat. Then he unified it against who?
Standing
Stanionis, who had maybe one fight in 2 years or something like that and had a kid on the way. So he probably was just fighting to get some money, a big payday. You know what I'm saying? So the timing of that fight was cool. I think Stanionis probably before that had fought maybe 2022. And then he fought 2004, maybe. So that's a little bit of a layoff. You know what I'm saying? That's like a layoff in the timing of that fight. Then we fought who? David Avanesian. I'm not knocking Boots, but I'm saying for us to be top 10 pound for pound versus a guy who's fought No Mas Lancheco, Hall of Famer, no question. No, like Floyd, no
shouldn't be
question.
a surefire Hall of Famer, but go ahead.
First ballot Hall of Famer, no
He should
question.
be a first
Unified
ballot Hall of
multiple
Famer, but go
champion
ahead.
and a former undisputed in Josh Taylor. That's why I feel my man Tio. And I'm not trying to pick sides, but like I said, we gotta respect boxing. This guy has put his balls on the line and fought some guys. Barboza was a tough guy. You know what I'm saying? But I think Boots can definitely, like I said, I think
Yeah.
he could be a 3-division champion, bro. He could probably go to 68, honestly. He could probably go to
Yeah, I don't know.
68.
I don't know about 68, but yeah, it's
He was
54.
sparring Canelo.
Yeah, he was
He could
sparring
go to
Canelo.
68.
Yeah, he
He
was
could go to
sparring Canelo.
68.
But remember where Canelo started his career at. So I
But he
mean,
bigger than Canelo. He could go to 68.
yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon on that front. But that's the thing there. Like you were saying with the upcoming bout, January 31st. Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson. It's going to be a really interesting matchup to see what Teofimo Lopez does here against Shakur Stevenson. A lot of people talk about Shakur Stevenson's style, but at the same token, as you mentioned, and a number of people mentioned with Teofimo Lopez, given the level of fight or the amount of attention behind the fight, he kind of gets up for those type of fights. So he could perform at a high level or very high level against someone like Shakur Stevenson to where he could, have the upper hand. But at the same token, is the style of Shakur Stevenson that isn't necessarily offense first going to be something to where Teofimo would have to be the aggressor or be the one that kind of initiates things with which at times he's not really comfortable of doing. So that's the thing that I'm looking forward to for that particular bout on January 31st. But like we were saying, that's going to be a double header because January 30th, I'm gonna be out there at Maryland Live, man. I'm gonna be right there for the Pro Box card with all of our fighters there from the DMV area involved in that. So you're gonna have that in Maryland Live, and then going up to MSG on January 31st. So definitely looking forward to that there. So with that being said, that's what I got here. Very packed show here with my guy, The Topic. Y'all follow The Topic there on social media. You got TOP and then the number 1 CK. All right. So y'all look him up, and you'll be able to see content from him as well. He's been out in the mix here with these boxing events there. If y'all haven't checked them out, so y'all can go ahead and then do that. But I'm gonna be back in the mix. Like I said, I'm gonna be out in the field this week, making the stops out in these local gyms. Like I said, with this Pro Box card that's being announced, I'm gonna be out there, to speak with a number of these fighters that's gonna be involved with it. So y'all check that out. And as I said, I've been on the move with the stuff with the trading cards. So y'all see it. I mean, you got this thing here. I know we got the light, but that's the thing with Keyshawn Davis there. Although that might end up being bought out or sold out, you got Lamont Rhodes Jr. there and stuff like that too. So a number of the local fighters I do have, but I do also have stuff for Terrence Allen Crawford as well. So they're on the move. If y'all are interested, just contact us through social media there, the Boxing Source. Just look us up and I'll see what I'll be able to get for you, because some of these individual cards, they're kind of like being bought out. So I gotta arrange about doing packs and that type of stuff. But with people saying that I want this one fighter, then that kind of throws things off on that front. So I'll be able to get that thing going a little bit more here before the close of the year, and y'all be able to check that out. But I'm going to be back at it online here with the midweek report on Wednesday night. And of course, the next edition of the Boxing Source podcast will be Sunday after, as they say, Judgment Day for Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. And if the Topic gets his wish of Anthony Joshua having his last match. Oh, man, we gonna see, man. We gonna see. Oh, man.
Loser leaves town, huh?
Yeah, loser leaves town match. Loser leaves town match. So we'll see what happens with that. All right. So that's what I have. Hit the like button if you enjoy the content. Hit the share button if you're on there for YouTube or Rumble. But it's also going to be available on audio form here. It's going to take a while for this thing to process, but it'll be available on audio form here later on in the week. All right. And as you know how it goes. With that being said, folks, I'll catch y'all later, y'all. Peace out.